Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and a warm welcome to the Singapore International Cyber Week Summit 2025. We are about to start this evening's proceedings, and I'd like to invite everyone to kindly take your seats, please. Good evening, Mrs. Josephine Teo, Minister for Digital Development and Information, Minister in charge of Cybersecurity and Smart Nation Group, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening and a warm welcome to the Singapore International Cyber Week Summit 2025. I'm Charmaine E, and I'm thrilled to be your host this evening. Marking the start of the 10th edition of the Singapore International Cyber Week, the SICW Summit tonight will be focusing on this year's theme, shaping the next era of global cybersecurity. Now, while the digital domain becomes increasingly interconnected, intensifying geopolitical competition, shifting dynamics in global governance, and the growing scale of cyber threats are collectively reshaping the digital and cyber landscape today. Now, beyond it being a technical challenge, cybersecurity today is what impacts international security, economic prosperity, and societal trust. The interconnected nature of cyberspace means that developments on one part of the world has implications on the other parts of the world rather. Underscoring the urgency of building common ground today and the shared responsibility of our digital future. Tonight, we are very honored in the room to have key cyber security personalities from across government, private sector, and academia join us for our summit tonight. This includes ministerial and senior government representatives, industry leaders, and key cyber, digital, and tech personalities. Ladies and gentlemen, to start this evening's proceedings, please put your hands together as we welcome Mrs. Josephine Teo, Minister for Digital Development and Information, Minister for Cybersecurity and Smart Nation Group, as she joins us on stage for her welcome address. Minister, please.
Fellow ministers, excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends, welcome to the Singapore International Cyber Week 2025. And to all of our Hindu friends, happy Deepavali. This is the 10th edition of the SICW. We are very happy to host 13,000 cybersecurity leaders and professionals from more than 90 countries. To all of our overseas guests, and especially warm welcome to you. Our meeting is taking place in sobering times. The rules-based international order is under stress and being challenged on multiple fronts. Cyberspace is increasingly fractious. State-sponsored threat actors have intensified their actions, attacking critical infrastructure such as those in defense, telecommunications, and technology organizations across many countries. Cybercriminals have also become increasingly emboldened. Over the past months, organizations ranging from airports to supermarket chains, automobile manufacturers, and even beer factories have been the victims of ransomware attacks. Ransom demands have escalated and millions have been paid out. Singapore has also not been spared. Our critical infrastructure has come under attack from state-sponsored advanced persistent threat actors. Almost 8 in 10 organizations have experienced a cyber attack, most of these by cybercriminals. These developments can potentially threaten our national security and our digital way of life. If not handled well, they also have the potential to undermine the progress we have made towards establishing a rules-based international cyber order. But when storm clouds gather, we still need to look for the silver linings. Over the past decades, we have made progress in strengthening trust and international cooperation. At the global level, the UN Open Ended Working Group has completed a multi year process and achieved consensus on setting up a permanent mechanism to continue sustained discussions on responsible state behavior in cyberspace. Like minded governments have also come together via initiatives like the Counter Ransomware Initiative to share best practices, build common frameworks, and collaborate to tackle cyber threats. Within the region, we continue to support each other in uplifting cyber capability. The ASEAN Singapore Cybersecurity Center of Excellence has delivered over 30 programs for more than 900 senior officials. Industry has also stepped up. For example, as part of the Global Signals Exchange, Google, Meta, and Microsoft have partnered with other private and public sector organizations to share threat signals in real time. This represents a significant step towards enhancing global cooperation in the fight against online scams and fraud. But there is more that we could and should have done. To date, the United Nations 11 norms of responsible state behavior in cyberspace have not been adopted globally. ASEAN is the only region to have done so. We hope that others in the global community will take concrete steps towards adopting these norms. There are good reasons to act. Against the escalating threat landscape, the absence of decisive collection, the absence of collective, let me say that again, the absence of decisive collective action put our citizens at greater risk. Domestically, governments will need political will and focused attention on strengthening capabilities in cybersecurity. Internationally, like minded partners must collaborate to be effective against common adversaries like cybercriminals and APTs. The private sector is critical to these efforts. Tech companies own and control significant parts of the digital backbone that the world now depends on and hold vast amounts of data. Each of you must act responsibly, be accountable for the security of your systems, and partner with governments to meet the challenges in the cyber domain. On a lighter note, as we begin our dinner, as I said earlier, today is Deepavali. It is also known to the Hindu community as the Festival of Lights. It is not just a public holiday in Singapore, but one of the most important festivals that the Hindu community gets together to mark and celebrate with other ethnicities in Singapore. Deepavali celebrates the triumph of good over evil and light over darkness. These are the very same hopes we have for cyberspace. Through tonight's summit and the rest of the week, I hope that you will have many fruitful discussions, strengthened partnerships, and renewed commitment to addressing the challenges in cyberspace. I am personally looking forward to the fireside chat that we will have later, that will be hosted by our Chief Executive of the CSA, David Koh, with Australia's Lieutenant General Michelle McGuinness. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank her for making this possible for us this evening. So, on that note, happy Deepavali and wishing everyone a good week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for sharing your insights on Singapore's role on the future of global cybersecurity. Now, as mentioned, we have an engaging night ahead of us. We have a keynote speech, and we also have a fireside chat with Australia's National Cybersecurity Coordinator. But before we proceed with all of that, let's begin with our dinner reception. Bon appetit, and I'll be right back. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I trust you're enjoying dinner and the company at your table so far. Now, in a few moments, we will be inviting Lieutenant General Michelle McGuinness, National Cybersecurity Coordinator, National Office of Cybersecurity Australia, up on stage to deliver our keynote address for this evening. But before that, at the 16th Billington Cyber Security Summit in September 2025, Lieutenant General Michelle McGuinness received the Billington International Award for her leadership in cyber strategy. This award, in fact, recognizes contributions to the global cybersecurity landscape through collaboration and national readiness. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Lieutenant General McGuinness, please.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for that very kind introduction and your reflection on the Billington Award. It was really wonderful for Australia to be recognised for our efforts to holistically uplift cybersecurity, and it was an honour to be the recipient. It makes me think I'd like to acknowledge the incredible efforts of everyone who works tirelessly in this space, including to support Australia's goal of being a world-leading cybersecure nation. It's an ambitious goal and one that I'm confident we are well on our way to achieving. But we do not, and frankly cannot, achieve this in isolation. Indeed, it cannot be done without great international partnerships and collaboration. This is absolutely the endeavour I believe brings us all here tonight, this evening as well, to celebrate this Singapore 10th International Cyber Week. It's an absolute honour to be here and to speak with you this evening. Singapore International Cyber Week has earned every bit of its global reputation as a premier platform for cybersecurity dialogue and diplomacy, and ultimately as an absolutely must-attend event. And that's in large part because Singapore has earned its reputation as a regional and global leader in cybersecurity. You have carved out a role as a model global cyber citizen. You have created a thriving cyber hub here in Singapore, and you continue to build relationships that strengthen our region and, by extension, the world's cyber intelligence, readiness, and resilience. You are playing a key role to help shape what a cyber-safe, healthy, and fair world looks like. One where every one of us can benefit and continue to realise the immense social and economic opportunities of emerging technology. And you are certainly a trusted partner to Australia, economically, strategically, and in our joint defence. That deep and wide-reaching partnership continues to strengthen our region and everyone in it. It would be remiss of me not to note that our bilateral relationship, of course, predates our cyber partnership. In fact, this year marks the 60th anniversary of what today we call a comprehensive strategic partnership between Australia and Singapore. It was wonderful to see that milestone celebrated by Prime Minister Wong visiting Australia earlier this month. As established and strong partners, it's no surprise that our two nations are so closely aligned in the work that we do in cybersecurity. But of course, it is not just us. Cybersecurity is unbound by geography and space. Reflective of the very esteemed audience here this evening, our broader region and our global partners are absolutely foundational to our collective cybersecurity efforts. Partnerships and their immense potential continue to be the cornerstone of our global progress on cybersecurity, which is why events like Singapore International Cyber Week, bringing together not just leaders, but experts, practitioners, policymakers, and academics from across the globe, are so critical to our shared success. This week provides an incredible opportunity to share our views on the latest developments in technology and AI, the evolving cyber threats that we see, incident response insights, and capability. But it is also an opportunity for us to build our networks and partnerships, underpinned by trust and human connection. In 2025, no matter where you are in the world, we find ourselves increasingly reliant on digital technologies. We are truly platform-centric societies. This brings with it incredible opportunities for growth, development, collaboration, and of course, innovation. But it also means we find ourselves in a world of growing cybersecurity challenges. It should not be lost on any of us that these challenges amount to threats of national security. In today's globalised and interconnected world, these threats are shared threats, and none of us can, nor should, face them alone. Collaboration and partnership in this field allows us not only to defend our own national security and build our own resilience, but also prepare and mitigate global threats on a unified effort. The theme for this Singapore International Cyber Week, Shaping the Next Era of Global Cybersecurity, describes an important turning point. And as we shape this next era, we should not overlook the deep human dimension, arguably at the heart of all of our endeavours. You know, I'm often told by cybersecurity experts and CISOs that the biggest problem we face sits between the chair and the keyboard. In other words, or in human speak, the human error plays a significant role in our vulnerabilities. But human endeavours are equally critical to our resilience. It's about the people building relationships between industry and government to share threat intelligence and combat cybercrime. The people behind cyber law and cyber policy development and cyber regulation that is fair and unburdening. And the people advocating for cyber awareness and uplifting our economies and every one of our citizens. Cybersecurity is not just a technical topic, but it's a whole of nation endeavour. And it requires the brightest minds and strongest partnerships across all sectors and across all borders, because where a link in our cybersecurity chain is a challenge for one, it is a challenge for all. So I thought I'd briefly reflect on my role as Australia's National Cybersecurity Coordinator. And I do this recognising that there is often great interest in the role, noting I have few, if any, direct counterparts. There is no doubt that for Australia, the establishment of a National Cybersecurity Coordinator was born of necessity and underpinned by the rapidly expanding scope and scale of threats. Like so many of our partners, Australia remains a ripe target for cyber criminals. In 2023, the growing scale and impact of cyber threats clearly highlighted the need for a central point of coordination, for someone who could lead across the country on efforts to prevent, prepare for, respond to, and rapidly recover from cybersecurity incidents. In practice, this means coordinating across local, state, and federal governments, as well as with industry partners and peak bodies. We do this to ensure that we manage and mitigate the potential consequences of cyber incidents and reduce the greatest amount of harm for the greatest number of Australians. Beyond incidents, I support the Minister for Cybersecurity to ensure that the Australian economy is, to the maximum extent possible, both cyber secure and cyber resilient. We want Australians to be safe and to feel safe. And we want to thrive in a digital environment that is safe, trusted, and secure. So my team and I work to support the uplift and resilience of government, businesses, and our citizens. Ultimately, at the heart of the Australian government's decision to appoint a coordinator is a true acknowledgement that cybersecurity is national security. And so while the position may be unique to Australia, the reason for its creation certainly is not. I know every one of us here tonight are all too familiar with the threats that we face. Last week, Australians received an update on the threat landscape with the Australian Signals Directorate publishing the 2024-25 Annual Cyber Threat Report. It paints a stark reality for our citizens. But when I read it alongside the Singapore CSA Cyber Landscape Report released just last month, the Cybersecurity Malaysia's MyCert Cyber Incident Quarterly Summary Reports, the UK's NCSC Annual Review, Canada's National Cyber Threat Assessment, and so many more, it certainly is a very familiar picture. Our adversaries are many and varied. Opportunistic individuals and organised crime gangs, as well as state and state-sponsored malicious actors from any part of the world. Ransomware and financially motivated cybercrime remain one of the most pervasive cyber threats to our citizens, businesses, and of course our critical infrastructure on the front line of persistent contact. These threats are persistent, they're insidious, and they're continuously shape-shifting. State-sponsored actors continue to target government and critical infrastructure seeking strategic advantage. The amount of advanced, persistent threat actors has soared, with the most sophisticated actors becoming stealthier and persistent in targeting our critical infrastructure for disruption or destruction at a time and place of their choosing. And all of this is being supercharged by artificial intelligence. The financial impact of cyber incidents on our economies also continues to grow. Research in Australia estimates that the cost of cybersecurity this year to Australia will be $25.4 billion. We project the cost over 10 years will be $215 billion. But we know these trends are universal. But how aligned are we in the steps that we're taking? And what can we learn from each other to build perhaps an international firewall? For Australia, our work has been guided by the 2023-2030 Australian Cybersecurity Strategy. Indeed, next month marks the 2-year mark since the release of this strategy. 2 years since we embarked on our journey to become a more resilient, cybersecure nation. 2 years of working to strengthen our foundations and address critical gaps in our cyber protections and the maturity across our economy and across our society. This is a milestone for us. In clear recognition of the requirement for us to remain adaptive and responsive to the rapidly changing nature of both the threat landscape and technology, our strategy is divided into 3 horizons. So the next year marks the start of a new horizon, Horizon 2. More broadly, I believe that our strategy to date has been a game changer. It represents a paradigm shift and a cultural shift in the way that we think and the way that we act. We are migrating cyber from being not just a technical topic, but to being that whole of nation endeavour, with a dedicated focus on providing better and holistic support to our whole population. The strategy outlines 6 shields which are unchanging. They provide an interlocking layers of defence that enhance our collective cybersecurity across the entire economy. From protecting and uplifting our most vulnerable individuals and businesses in Shield 1, to incentivising secure by design and then secure by default in the technologies that we use every day under Shield 2. Shield 3 establishes frameworks for industry and government to work together to rapidly share threat intelligence and block cybersecurity threats. Shield 4 focuses on protecting our most important systems and assets, that being our critical infrastructure. Shield 5 prioritises building sovereign capability. And because we can't be secure in an insecure region, Shield 6 seeks to support and uplift our closest regional partners while also collaborating and learning from the experience of others so that we can enhance our collective cyber resilience. Let me focus for a minute on Shield 6. Every one of us here has a role to play in setting clear international rules of engagement. And I'd offer it's never been more important to come together to ensure we uphold international laws and norms and shape the global rules and standards in support of our shared interests. Australia remains deeply concerned by the continued growth of online scam operations and their linkages to transnational and serious organised crime. We're working closely with international partners, including through the Mekong Australia Partnership on Transnational Crime, to share intelligence, identify and disrupt scam syndicates, strengthen criminal justice responses and protect victims, both in Australia and around the world. And of course, as highlighted in the last Singaporean cyber landscape report, and it mentioned earlier by Minister Teo, APT actors are a significant growing concern, and I want to acknowledge Singapore's leadership in calling out bad behaviour. Rogue APT actors have the potential to undermine not just national security, but global security. We are incredibly proud to work with our international partners, using all available tools, including sanctions and attributions, to impose costs on both individuals and organisations that make cyberspace less safe and less secure. And as the global security and technology landscapes continue to evolve, so do the opportunities for partnerships and international cooperation in this space. In Australia, we know we still have much to do to enhance the cybersecurity of our economy and our region. Horizon 2 is our next milestone. It will see us shift our focus to operational maturity, scaling our efforts and expanding our reach. We'll move from planning to performance, from building to embedding, and from reacting to resilience. As we consider how to best deliver on this next horizon, we will do so in step with our domestic and our international partners. We do this with a clear understanding that this is not just a government strategy, but a whole of nation strategy and a whole of world endeavour. So this International Cyber Week provides a wonderful opportunity for us all here in Singapore to do just that. In the minutes I have left, if I can be so bold, none of us should leave here without maximising that same opportunity. This is our chance, surrounded by world-leading practitioners, innovators and experts, to come together as leaders and make every minute count, to learn from the success and the challenges of others, to collaborate, to innovate and to build. We have the opportunity to leave Singapore with the most up-to-date picture of the threat landscape. This includes first-hand knowledge of what's working and what isn't, and the practical initiatives, capabilities, tools and strategies to arm ourselves separately and collectively. But as leaders here tonight, it behoves every one of us to also take this opportunity to build genuinely stronger partnerships, founded on trust and shared challenges, in support of our commitment to a safer, more prosperous and secure world. You know, we're in unprecedented times and our challenges in this space continue to grow. Indeed, there is no finish line for us. But I, for one, am undeterred. This is too important and there is too much at stake, and I'd argue that goes for every one of us. Our regional and global partnerships are critical to meeting these ever-evolving threats and challenges. And partnerships across government, industry, academia, nations and regions will continue to shape the direction and success of our cybersecurity. I look forward to working with you all as together we build the cybersecurity and resilience of our nations, the global commons and the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant General McGuinness. We'd like to invite you to remain on stage, please, and take a seat for our fireside chat. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us on stage, moderating the fireside chat is Mr. David Koh, Commissioner of Cybersecurity and Chief Executive, Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore, Chief of Digital Security and Technology, Ministry of Digital Development and Information, Singapore. Mr. Koh, stage is all yours.
Thank you very much. And my personal assurances that the QR code that we have put up will not lead anywhere untoward. A very good evening, Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues and friends. And thank you, General McGuinness, for that insightful sharing of Australia's perspective on shaping the next era of global cybersecurity. I thank you in particular for the kind words to Singapore, and I note your strong emphasis on the need for partnerships. I'm confident that many of these insights will be further discussed and elaborated on during the discussions that will take place for the rest of this week at SICW, at the plenaries and other events over the next few days. It's really an honor to welcome everyone here today for this fireside chat, where we will delve a little bit deeper into this year's Singapore International Cyber Week's topic of shaping the next era of global cybersecurity. We are indeed entering a new era where the digital domain is closely interconnected with global stability and economic growth. And in the midst of all this, rising geopolitical tensions, shifting dynamics in global governance, and the ever-evolving cyber threats that are reshaping the digital and cyber landscape. Today, cybersecurity is not just a technical issue. It is the backbone connecting national security, economic strength, and public trust. And as Michelle said, a whole of nation endeavor. Cybersecurity is inherently borderless. We all need to come together to address digital and cybersecurity issues for collective economic and the social betterment of our citizens. However, global geopolitical tensions and tech contestation impede international cyber cooperation. And it is in the midst of all these tensions that cyber diplomacy is increasingly important. We need to talk and to engage with diverse and indeed opposing views. And this means moving out of our comfort zones and even engaging those who may have a different worldview from us. This is what we hope the discussions at SICW can facilitate. I'm privileged this evening to share the stage with Australia's National Cybersecurity Coordinator, Lieutenant General Michelle McGuinness, and I look forward to exchanging views on our cybersecurity strategies amidst these increasing geopolitical tensions. I'll start off with a couple of questions, but I welcome all of you to please scan the QR code, submit your own questions on our e-platform Slido. So please, the QR code should be up. Please scan that. But meanwhile, Michelle, I wanted to ask you, you spoke about how Australia is shifting the way it thinks about and acts on cybersecurity, from being just a technical issue to a whole of nation effort and supporting all citizens and sectors more holistically. What, in your view, will it take to build the trust, the partnerships across industries, institutions, sectors in order to drive this shift in thinking?
Yeah, thanks, David. I think this is something we're very focused on and put a lot of resources in. It is going to take a two-way, trusted, authentic partnership. I think it's also going to take the continued discussion around the stories we tell in cybersecurity. We have worked very hard in Australia to actually lift cybersecurity from being a technical issue so that it is a leadership issue. We talk to our boards and our industry partners about this being about risk, being about resources, being about priorities. It is absolutely a leadership issue. I think we have in the past been inclined to leave it to the IT guys down in the cupboard on the bottom floor as a computer issue. But this is absolutely a leadership issue. So a couple of initiatives out of our strategy to actually build that authentic trust. One is we've established an executive cyber council where the Minister for Cybersecurity meets with the top roughly 35 CEOs, the largest employers across our economy, and has that discussion at the CEO level about what they're seeing, what we're seeing, and how we can collaborate together in that authentic way where the Minister absolutely talks about compliance and absolutely talks about having the right regulation, and industry are there to share and support how they can best contribute. So it is an absolute two-way street. This is a cost of doing business in Australia, and those partners are leaning forward. And in my experience to date, we've established working groups that sit below that council that are driving the top 4 challenges that we see across our nation. So we have working groups that are industry-led on how do we expand, grow and professionalise our workforce. How are we adapting to evolving technologies? What are our opportunities for sovereign capability growth? And then how do we uplift small and medium businesses?
Great ideas there, trying to create this trusted, authentic partnership. And I note you saying that it's a two-way street.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And what totally resonates with me is the idea that this is not a backroom issue, but really it is a boardroom issue and dealing with risk. I think that's something that resonates with me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're bringing it into the all hazards approach. It is a significant hazard. And in fact, you would have seen the data that the majority of businesses now see it in the top 2 or 3 risks that they face. So it's really important that we elevate the issue and that we partner with industry. You know, today we see our small business leaders, our critical infrastructure owners, our large businesses on the front line of national security in constant contact with cyber threats. So that has to be a partnership.
Shifting gears a bit, talking about technology. Some say that technology has to some extent, killed off multilateral diplomacy. We're seeing an increasingly fragmented cyber landscape and erosion of digital trust. In your view, how can we continue to foster stronger international cooperation to establish and uphold global norms in cyberspace?
I think it's a great question. I think historically, when we have a security issue, as nations, we can be inclined to prioritise our national interests and the values that we espouse, which contribute to international norms, sometimes can take a back step in a security deficit. But here, our international security is absolutely synonymous with our national security. We are so interconnected. We are so reliant. A threat to one, I do believe, is a threat to all. And I think that is where we need to continue to identify the partnerships, those that are willing to stand for the standards that we set. We can't do this in isolation. No one can do this in isolation.
I totally agree. I've said it many times that cyber is a team sport. I'd argue is an international team
team.
Right. No conversation on digital or cyber would be complete without throwing in AI or quantum, so I have to go there. Looking at the rapid tech race like AI, quantum, does it make it hard for policies to keep up with emerging digital advancements and cyber threats? This lag, as it were, can leave vulnerabilities unaddressed and potentially slow down innovation. Do you think, how can we balance as governments, firstly, not known for rapid regulations, how can we balance innovation and regulatory oversight in a way that protects people on the one hand, but doesn't stifle tech innovation? Your thoughts?
My first thought goes to those trusted, genuine partnerships. This is where we have to be having discussions with industry. There are things that each of us do well. Governments regulate very well. Industry understands tech very well. We have to come together and have those genuine conversations. And it has to be that compliance and safety and innovation can't be mutually exclusive. We have to find a way to actually embrace technologies, allow our industries to innovate without overly burdening them with excessive regulation, particularly on one sector or another, but ensuring that we are safe, that we are secure, that the services and the capabilities they provide our nation, our citizens, have met the standard. And to me, it means increasingly moving to a secure by design standard that is baked in at the start. We've seen time and time again, you can't bolt security on at the end.
Yeah, getting that baked in from the start is the hope of all of us. Let's indeed hope that we can do this in the midst of dealing with legacy systems.
Yeah, and it has to be that conversation. Without that honest, authentic conversation from industry on the threats that they're facing, the systems they're dealing with, the innovation they're driving, and government's job is to really work with them so that we can be safe and secure and there is compliance. And as I said, compliance and innovation can't be mutually exclusive.
Right. I understand where you're coming from, but there is also, in my view, a fear when you look at compliance, that people mistake the idea that the government is the bad guy. I have to meet your compliance standards, and we lose sight that the bad guys are actually out there, that you, government and industry, are on the same side. Your views?
Yeah, absolutely. And to that end, I've seen the Australian government increasingly provide tools to support compliance. Increasingly, we're providing playbooks, we're providing best practice SOPs, we're collaborating with experts because we know that we need industry to thrive. We need our nations to thrive in this space. But again, partnering with them and providing tools, I think there are genuine ways that we can demonstrate that we're not there to limit their ability to innovate, to thrive, to build and grow in our economy. But the criticality, the consequences are too great. And I think that there is that friction between innovation, speed to market, surviving, getting your service or your product out. And quite often we're seeing it's too late then to be worrying about the security.
No, I think that totally resonates with me. I think this is how we have tried to do it in ASEAN. When we started the cybersecurity journey in ASEAN, we made a deliberate decision to frame cybersecurity as a key enabler for that digitalization journey. All countries in ASEAN want to reap the benefits of digitalization, ICT technologies to uplift our populations, education, jobs, etc. But we can only do that if we can get cybersecurity right. So we see cybersecurity as an enabler for all these potential economic growth. Question here, which I wanted to flag out. What are some of the lessons Australia has learned in the process of implementing mandatory cyber incident reporting? How can others learn from your experience? Yeah.
So let me just clarify. We have implemented in our legislation mandatory reporting of ransomware payments that are made by organisations with a turnover of more than 3 million. So we've fairly well quantified it. The goal of this is for us to get a much better idea of the quantum and scale of ransomware reporting. We know that what we see and what's reported contemporaneously is probably just the tip of the iceberg. We know that cybersecurity and ransomware costs us a huge amount. And by rolling this legislation out, we hope to have a much better view and a contemporaneous view of what is happening in the ransomware scheme and who is paying. I think complementary to that, we are also working very closely. The mandatory reporting, by the way, is no fault, no liability. So it's anonymised. It was only, whilst it was in the legislation last November, it came into effect at the end of May this year. So it's still early days, but we are seeing entities report. In fact, we're seeing entities who don't meet the threshold also report. And we see people increasingly report that they were ransomed, but they didn't pay. So this is great, opening up the conversation, taking away some of the shame and the hidden data so that we can actually identify and build policies that are most impactful to prevent us from being, it is a scourge and we need to lift it off our society. But I think also when we work closer with industry and with our partners, they feel more confident in facing those challenges. So the Australian government position is that we do not recommend anyone pay a ransom for a very good range of good reasons. But I think having those open conversations actually builds the confidence of entities to say, well, if I'm going to have a partner in dealing with this ransomware, then I can probably move forward without paying it. Of course, we haven't legislated or made it illegal because we can think of scenarios where risk to life could be at case, but we absolutely do not recommend anyone pay ransom.
Yeah, absolutely. I think ransomware is indeed the scourge that's affecting all of us. I think the first challenge we have is trying to get a handle on the data. Absolutely. And just getting to know what the scale of the problem is, who is paying, who is affected, etc. And that's something which I think this helps to. And
this is what the reporting is set to do.
Right. And just as I'm sure all of you know, actually ransomware is it's a business. So the payment of ransom feeds that business model, and it goes into their own R&D and their own development of tools so that it continues to make the problem an even bigger one. Okay. As promised, we have a question on AI and quantum. With the rise of AI and quantum and autonomous systems, how might the cyber threat landscape evolve in the next 5 to 10 years? Give you a moment to get the crystal ball out.
Yes, can I have a crystal ball? I could also do with a more technical person. No, let's just talk about AI. I think certainly we are seeing our adversaries using AI without the moral and ethical guardrails. They are embracing it in terms of finding vulnerabilities and targeting and making whether it be scams or whether it be identifying vulnerabilities, making it more authentic and making us more vulnerable. I think on the other side is that we have a great opportunity to use AI to actually build stronger, better software, hardware, reduce vulnerabilities. This is a tool that brings great promise in providing us with more security and identifying ahead of a threat actor where we might have vulnerabilities.
Okay. Here's a great question. What can Singapore and Australia and other nations do to move the region away from legacy, insecure systems and toward more secure digital infrastructure? Putting things in place from the beginning. I'm sure you don't have the problem with legacy systems in Australia.
Yeah, not at all. Yes, we do. Of course, this is a problem, and it's a significant problem that we all face. I think there are a range of initiatives we can do. We can certainly support regional and sovereign capability and uplift, and we have to convey the risk so that this is about risk. What is the cost of updating your systems versus the cost of having a major cyber incident? And then support our businesses through that transition. And we know that it's not easy, but we need to move through this.
All right. Switching gears. This is a very interesting question. Do you think it is possible to have rules that state-based APTs can realistically subscribe to?
I love it that I'm being kept on my toes here. Can I ask you that question? It's Can I see the question again? Can we have rules that's a really good question. I'm not sure that we're dealing with any rule followers. I think we really are working with actors that seek to exploit vulnerabilities, and the best that we can do is continue to drive and uphold norms, increase our security, increase our capability, but increase our resilience. We're never going to stop every attack, but we can get to a place where we are more resilient so that we can bounce back quicker and be less impacted.
Yeah, I totally subscribe to that view. I don't think it's realistically possible to prevent all cyber attacks, especially attacks by sophisticated actors like APTs. I think we do have to move to that idea of resilience and build in systems, especially our critical infrastructure, which have built-in resilience. Someone put it to me this way: resilience should be built like escalators. So if they fail, your critical systems, if they fail, then you can still use the escalator as a staircase, as opposed to a lift or an elevator, where if it fails, then you can't use it anymore. So some element of graceful degradation. What do you think are realistic next steps for building interoperability and mutual recognition between cyber frameworks across regions?
I think this is a great question. I actually think that there is an opportunity for us to regionally and even globally work together to harmonise our regulation and our frameworks a little, because we rely on industry and we want our industry to thrive in this global market. So the more we can align ourselves, I think the better opportunity that we can build strong capabilities that are available to us all. But I do think there is an opportunity for us to harmonise the way we look at things. I think in particular incident reporting, when we all have different requirements or different frameworks, it makes it very hard for those service providers who support us all to meet our requirements. I think we can drive a more efficient system by collaborating around some of those frameworks and sharing when we have had significant successes and what does work and what doesn't work, so that we can build the best in breed. I think that's where we've got to get to in terms of collaborating around that space.
Great, thank you. Going back to the criminal gangs, the potential gains that criminal gangs can get from investing, I like the choice of words, investing in cyber crimes is so enormous that it will inevitably grow. The ROI actually is very high. Do you see any way to correct this?
And look, I agree. The cost of entry can be very low. The payoff can be very high. They need to get lucky once. We need to get it right every time. And I also reflect on your comments, David, that it's a business model. These are business parks. Walk into any of our capital cities and look at a set of buildings. These are cyber criminals who have a romance department, and they have an AI department, and they have a HR department, and they've got to go and, it is a phenomenal scale. In terms of how do we curb it, I think we have to uplift our security. We have to call it out. We have to be aware of it. I mean, Australian citizens lose around $50 million a month to cyber criminals. That's citizens, not businesses, not critical infrastructure. That's what our victim support services tell us. It is beyond the imagination still of way too many Australians as to what they're looking for and how they can defend themselves against it. I think we need to do a better job at actually driving consequences for them as well. And I know that's hard, but it's absolutely going to take international collaboration across our law enforcement organisations, across our justice departments. But we have to keep trying, because it is unacceptable and it is too much.
That's a thought I would agree that when I first started in cybersecurity, I recall our police department approaching me about scams. And I recall distinctly telling them that, oh, that's criminal. It's not my problem. I'm dealing with national security. And since then, I've seen the error of my ways. I've apologized to the police, and we're back working with them actively on scams. Yeah. It is also a huge problem in Singapore. Singapore citizens have been losing around about $1 billion a year. For a small population, that's a phenomenal amount of money. So I think increasingly we see the evolution of the cyber landscape and the confluence and conflation of things which were perhaps in a different arena coming together.
Absolutely.
Right. One closing question, if I may, if I can get this to work. If there was one thing, if you had to choose, what is the one problem you think we could all go after together? If you were queen for a day, magic wand.
Imagine being that. One problem. I am. This is October Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I'm sure I don't need to tell the audience here. But I am pretty focused with my team and with some great support across the Australian government, focused on actually reaching out to every Australian citizen, having a conversation at every Australian kitchen table about the simple things that every citizen can do to protect themselves. I think Australians, our research tells us they fall into two categories. One category is they think this won't happen to them and this is something else that happens somewhere else. And the other half think it will absolutely happen to them and there's nothing they can do about it. Australians we have to uplift our cyber culture, our cyber safety culture. You know, I often say that we're well known for some of our physical security culture. We know how to cross the road, we click, clack, we put sunscreen on, slip, slop, slap. We have all these cultures that keep us safe. We know how to deal with floods and with fires. We know how to keep our communities safe and to come together. We now live in a digital world and the knowledge doesn't match the access to the technology. So we've had 3 key messages and I think they're global, but apply multi-factor authentication, have unique passphrases on every different account and update your software. And when we look at incidents that occur across the economy, just scale that, but most of them are the result of us not taking simple actions that put us all in control of our cybersecurity. So I think if we all globally were able to uplift our own cyber posture, talk to your parents, your kids, your grandparents, your communities, I think that'd make a difference.
Totally resonates with me. I think that we find the same experience in Singapore. We all know how to act in the physical world. You know not to leave your wallet on the table. You know to lock your car or your home when you leave it. And you know how to cross the road. And I asked my colleagues, how do we learn these lessons? We didn't attend a course which the Singapore Police Force conducted. We learned it from our parents as we were growing up. But the same thing didn't happen for cyber.
Absolutely.
Our parents didn't teach us anything. If anything, we're teaching our parents what to do
completely
on cyber. So I think indeed, all of us have been thrust into the 21st century without having that instinct growing up, as it were, in cyber. I have great hopes because I think that I'm not a digital native. I speak the language, but with an accent. My children are digital natives. I hope that the next generation will have the instincts and hopefully that will be a better place for all of us. So thank you everyone for the thought-provoking questions and thank you, Michelle, for being so generous with your time. This concludes our question and answer session. A big thank you everyone to Michelle McGuinness for her thoughtful insights.
Thank you.
In closing, I want to say that we navigate the complexities of today's cyber landscape, and it requires us to confront not only technical challenges, but also the broader geopolitical realities and to drive events and influence cooperation. And more importantly, for us to each in our own countries have that whole of nation approach. The current geopolitical landscape characterized by fragmented trust will make advancing global norms and cooperation difficult, especially with agencies and groups which don't observe norms. But nonetheless, it presents an urgent call and opportunity for renewed dialogue, transparency, and collaboration. And that's why all of us are here. Only by working together across borders, sectors, interests, can we collectively build a safer, more resilient cyberspace that benefits everyone, all our citizens. So the path forward won't be easy, but the stakes have never been higher. Let's all together commit to finding common ground and shape a future where cybersecurity is a shared responsibility, a shared priority, not a battleground. There's certainly been an enriching discussion, and I'm sure there'll be many more in the next few days ahead of us. And I'm personally looking forward to it. So once again, I encourage everyone who has come to SICW to use this opportunity, as what Michelle said during her speech, to hear diverse voices across the states, industry, and academia. And this brings us to the end of our fireside chat. Please give a big round of applause to Michelle McGuinness.
Thank you, Lieutenant General McGuinness and Mr. Cole, for that discussion. I'd like to invite both of you to remain on stage for a photograph together, perhaps. Thank you both. A truly insightful discussion on stage. Another round of applause, ladies and gents. I'm sure we'll be taking many of those points into our conversations as we enjoy our final course of this evening, which is dessert, which will be served very shortly. Enjoy.